sports is just my excuse to write about people.
Gregg Doyel, a master wordsmith who's interviewed the heaviest hitters in all of Hoosier sport.
Jim Irsay.
Passionate, loving, flawed, human.
Andrew Luck.
Nerdy, humble, beautiful human being.
Tamika Catchings.
Hero.
Bob Knight.
Complicated, complex.
That just scratches the surface of our conversation with award-winning IndyStar columnist Gregg Doyel. His journey from Hawaii to Georgia to Indianapolis. Why his dad lived in a chicken coop. And Doyel's take on the Colts, Pacers, and all things Indiana sports. He's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast.
In the NBA, there's the haves and the have-nots as far as attracting players. And we live in a have-not city. We all know that. But the Pacers are trying their best. You asked me, you say Indianapolis Colts, and I think Titanic.
Gregg Doyel, a pull-no-punches type of journalist. Well, sort of. He's been in the ring with UFC boxer Chris Lights Out Lytle, which you'll hear about a bit later in the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. Welcome. I'm Gary Dick. Well, Doyel was born in Hawaii, the son of a Vietnam vet. He moved around a bunch as a kid, grew up in Oklahoma and Mississippi, and wound up going to high school in Macon, Georgia, where he was a 3-time All-State athlete. An experience, he says, makes him well-suited to write about athletes, sports, and just ordinary people. Doyel's writing skills have earned the respect of his peers. He's been named the nation's top sports columnist by the Associated Press multiple times.
And I'm pleased to be joined now by IndyStar columnist Gregg Doyel. And Gregg, welcome to the podcast.
Gary, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Hey, to me anyway, I think this is a great time of year. You know, fall, the temps are beginning slowly but surely to drop a little bit. The weather getting more comfortable, but college has kicked off. By the time this podcast airs, the NFL will have kicked off. You've got playoff baseball around the corner. I got to ask you about the Colts, though. All eyes on the Colts. You got the Jonathan Taylor drama. Just when I say Indianapolis Colts, your take heading into this season, I don't think anybody knows what to expect.
No, but I guess if we're going to do like word association, you asked me, you say Indianapolis Colts, and I think Titanic. It's, the ship's sinking now. It could come back.
Yeah. Shane
Steichen, the new coach, might be really good. He might not. There's no way to know. Colts fans will tell you, oh, he's going to be great. Yeah, how do you know that? You don't know. He might be great. But as you say, this will be airing after the season starts. Maybe Jonathan Taylor, there'll be some clarity in there. Although I doubt it. He's on the physically unable to perform list for 4 weeks. They can't remove him from that. Probably can't trade him. Not legally can't, but no one will want him yet. So, because he can't play for 4 weeks. So probably there's no change there. The Colts are in trouble. They are. But then again, this was supposed to be the Colts are in trouble kind of season. They've got a rookie quarterback. Running back won't play. They don't have a lot of talent. People need to lower their expectations. It's not going to be a good season.
What do you think about, I know you have an opinion because I think you wrote a piece on it this week on Jonathan Taylor on, a lot of finger pointing going on. In your view, is this on the Colts or on Jonathan Taylor and his agent?
It takes a village to create something as ugly as this. So no one's hands are clean, to be very clear about that, including from the Colts side. Irsay has sent out a couple tweets that didn't help. Chris Ballard has kind of negotiated in the media by saying, he wants money, basically by saying he wants money, but he was hurt last year and we won 4 games. In other words, how valuable could he be? He keeps saying, we only won 4 games, so he's not that valuable. So that doesn't help. I'm not saying Ballard's wrong. I'm not saying Irsay's tweets were wrong. Going public with that doesn't help. Having said that, not everybody's tied. Somebody has to be the bigger villain in this, and it's Jonathan Taylor without question. He's something's changed. Something fundamental has changed. We don't always know everything. So we don't really know why something has changed fundamentally with Jonathan Taylor. He has got a new agent. And his new agent is a moron who represents professional wrestlers and believes in the theory that all attention is good attention. And in the NFL, but especially in this market, no, it's not. So Taylor's changed. his negotiating tactics are ugly, and the Colts are pushing back as they have the right to do. So this is Taylor's fault. The agent works for him. We can say it's the agent's fault. He works for you, Taylor. Once upon a time, you were very, very impressive. Please come back to that guy.
Yeah. Hey, how about I want to talk about the other big major league franchise. The Pacers seems to be, I'd be interested in your take, kind of righted the ship. There seems to be, a little excitement down there. Obviously, the field house, big changes there in the venue. But in terms of the on-court team, what are your thoughts on the kind of the new look Pacers?
Well, they're trying their best. I mean, they're trying their absolute best. This is not the NFL where parity matters and every single city in the NFL is a market, because the TV finds you. And, in the NBA, there's the haves and the have-nots as far as attracting players. And we live in a have-not city. We all know that. But the Pacers are trying their best, and they've got good young talent, and they're exciting. And they're going to try and maybe win half their games, and we just got to have to appreciate how hard they're trying, and they will be a fun product. Kind of the Colts could be fun. The Colts won't be good, but Richardson, he'll be fun. The Pacers are striving to be fun and just hoping someday, it hadn't happened yet, hoping someday to just get really kind of lucky in a way and stumble onto, for example, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah. The Bucks stumbled onto him. They're hoping someday to stumble onto something like that, and we'll see what happens. They haven't stumbled onto him yet, but we'll see.
Yeah. You have been in Indy for now almost a decade, arrived, I think, in 2014. And in doing a little research, I think one of your first columns, kind of an introduction to Indianapolis, you talked about, to your readers, these are your teams, your town. I'm not one of your people yet, but I will be. I will be part of the city. As you look at the past 10 decades, have you lived up to that? Do you feel you're a part of Indianapolis, kind of the vibe in the city?
All I can tell you is I've tried as hard as I possibly can. No one, whether I am or not, I don't know. I guess that I don't know. That's for someone else to say, but no one could have possibly taken this job and tried harder than me. I've immersed myself, pro, college, high school, written about youth sports, written about just normal, quote, quote, normal people that aren't famous, but tried to shine the light on them. I've done what I can. And there's all kinds of metrics we can look at, and I'm not going to do it, but that would say, yeah, I've done a pretty good job of being part of the city, and people have noticed. But ultimately, whoever's listening has to decide that. It all comes down to a popularity contest. There are people, and the way I say that because social media makes the world look that way. And you get on Twitter or Facebook or wherever else, and it looks like, oh, I'm popular because look what's happening here, or oh, I'm not popular because look what's happening here. Social media is not real. It's not. It's real, but it's not accurate. So people can think what they want, but the big picture, I'm pretty pleased with how these 9 years have gone.
Yeah, Indy, and you mentioned it there in the kind of the breadth of the coverage of the sports and the levels of competition you cover, would seem that Indianapolis and more broadly Indiana is a pretty good place to cover sports. Would you agree with that?
Incredible place. Yeah, we have, some cities I wouldn't be greatly suited, I should say, in some cities. Like I don't want to be in New York. I don't want to be in LA. I don't want to be in DC. I don't want to be in places where you kind of have to write about the pro sports only. Not that there's anything wrong with pro sports, but we have a cross section of high school, college, and pro, and all three matter greatly. Mm-hmm. And that's wonderful for someone like me, because I don't want to write about the Colts every day or the Pacers. I would like to go to a Purdue game or an IU game. I'd like to go to a high school state championship game, or just write about some kid at Roncalli. I like writing about people, and this is a job in this market. There's a lot of people playing a lot of different sports that's perfect for someone like me. There are other big timer folks that just want to follow around the big team. In fact, some of the people that have had the job before me just wanted to follow around the Colts and the Pacers and think that was good enough. It's not good enough. In this market, we care about the little person, so to speak, including people like me when I was in high school. We care about, you don't have to be world famous to be cared about in this market, and I love that.
You mentioned high school sports. You cover it now, but you played it. At a high level, you were an all-state baseball and soccer player in Georgia, right?
I was, yeah. Soccer 1 year, baseball 2, and growing up in sports like I did, loving sports, this job I have is just an extension of that. So when you play sports and then you think, how can I stay involved? Somehow I wasn't good enough to play pro anything, but I enjoy it and I love it. And those are memories that whether you're all state or you played or you were on the team and, didn't play, but you hugged your teammates when they came back to the bench. Those are moments that sustain you and carry you. And that camaraderie just goes and goes and goes. So I'm grateful to have had that. And I also like having that in my back pocket because people on Twitter are mean.
Right. Yeah.
And they say, oh, you never played the game. And I just love to say, how many people in this conversation, show of hands, who's all saying two sports in this conversation? And then I'm putting my little Twitter emoji hand up. Or I'll say, I love this too. Or how many people have had 5 amateur boxing fights and won 4 of them? Show of hands. And I'll raise my little emoji hand. So it doesn't mean anything, but it's just a nice little comeback when someone tries to play you didn't play. Yeah, I did play. I didn't play for the Colts, but I did play. I played more than you, probably, whoever you are.
Yeah. Tell me about boxing because that's fascinating to me. You were 4-0 as an amateur boxer, and you kind of came out of retirement, so to speak, and you fought Chris Lytle, right?
Yeah, I'm not very smart. That wasn't a smart
I was
move.
going to say, what the heck?
I was 4-0 and I was undefeated. I was 4-0 with 3 knockouts, and not that that's a huge record, but it was my record, and that looks pretty good. But then Rocksteady Boxing, which is
yes.
Do you know Rocksteady Boxing?
I'm familiar with it. Yes.
Yeah, it's a gym for Parkinson's patients. They don't fight each other. Yeah, it's just it's high intensity. Scott Newman, the former prosecutor of Marion County, got Parkinson's, started doing boxing workouts in his garage, noticed that the intensity of the workouts really trained the brain. Parkinson's takes the brain connection to the muscles. It weakens it. Boxing workouts just gets that network going again. So anyway, he started this little gym, and now Rocksteady Boxing is in gyms. It is in like 80 countries and every state in America.
See, I didn't know that. We actually did a story on the show sometime probably right after he started. I didn't realize it expanded that much.
Oh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere because it works. Now, does it heal Parkinson's? No. But does it stop the progression often in its tracks? It absolutely does. And it gives these folks, these parkies, as they call themselves, a network, a place to be. And anyway, they had a fundraiser about 8 years ago, and they wanted to sell tickets. And they always have amateur boxing, and then they wanted to have a headliner. And they thought, well, let's get Chris Lytle in here as a headliner, and maybe he can fight me. And so we did a headliner. We fought for 3 rounds. And the thing is, can I curse or can I not curse?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So backstage, Lytle and I are sitting there getting ready to go fight, and we're friendly. I know him a little bit, and his shirt is off, and he's tattooed and monstrous. He fought in the UFC for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And he says to me, "Hey, I know your brain. Your job is about your brain, so I'm going to go easy on your head, but I am going to try and hit you in the body so hard that you shit yourself." And I will tell you that he almost succeeded at that exact moment, because that's pretty frightening.
Oh, what was it like to be in the ring with that guy? I mean, I can't imagine.
I'm not smart, as I say. Listen, boxing is a dance, and whoever's better, unless you're fighting for real, and we weren't fighting for real.
Yeah.
Whoever's better leads the dance. And so whoever's lesser, me, it's kind of up to me to go as hard as I want to go. And then the guy better will allow me to. And then every now and then let me know, like a big dog lets a little dog know, you're not in charge here.
Yeah.
So I spent 3 rounds chasing Lytle around the ring, and he spent 3 rounds letting me know that you don't deserve to chase me around the ring. So he battered me pretty good, but it was a great time. I was so tired afterwards because the stress of boxing, it wears you out. People wonder, how do you train for hours and weeks and whatever?
Yeah.
And these UFC fighters, these boxers are exhausted after 1 round. How's that even possible? Well, because the tension, the stress in your body and your muscles of just, I don't know if it's fear or whatever it is, you're tense for 3 whole minutes. It wears your body out. It just wipes you out. And so anyway, after 3 rounds, I was toast. Wow. And of course, Lytle's been doing this his whole life. So to him, he probably could have gone on forever. So I'm collapsing in the corner when it's over, and Lytle does a backflip for the crowd. And everybody's loving it. Everybody's laughing at Lytle's backflip. And I saw that in the corner of my eye, and I walked in the middle of the ring and did a little somersault. And I don't think everybody loved that. That's okay.
Oh, that's good. What do you do when you're not writing? What do you do? What do you do to kind of unwind, kind of in your downtime?
Looking at him now, my dog Cap. He's a greyhound. I got him about 8 months ago. He's a retired. It's called a lurcher. It's a mostly greyhound, 7/8 greyhound in his case, 1/8 hunting dog. So he wasn't a pro racer. He was a pro hunter. Hunters had him, but he was an employee for 7 years. So, but then he lost a step, I guess. And so he went to a rescue place and I adopted him, and he's my guy.
Yeah.
Cap is my guy. And I've been here for 9 years, and the first 8 years were oftentimes a struggle. Just people struggle. I've got 2 kids. They're getting older and going through what they go through. And, I was coming off a divorce here. A lot of things going on, like everybody has. Cap has been my hero.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Back to your writing, because you have won numerous awards, national awards. How would you describe your writing style? Because, and you mentioned this earlier, you write about sports, but you really write about people, and you I know write a lot about the human side of sport. How would you describe your writing style?
Well, first of all, the topics sports is just my excuse to write about people. So yeah, I'm a sports writer, but sports are just my excuse to write about somebody with Parkinson's, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a basketball somewhere in the background, I'm writing about you. So, but my style, I guess I would say, is just conversational. I write like I talk. At least I try to. And I know I do, actually, because there have been a couple times, including a couple days ago, I'm trying to think, what was the story I did this on? Jonathan Taylor. I had the interview. Okay, Chris Ballard met with the media the day after roster cutdown day. And you and I are taping this 2 days after that.
Yep.
Well, the Ballard spoke with us about Jonathan Taylor, and he's still here, and why is he still here? And it was a late afternoon press conference. My deadline's coming up, and I'm driving home right from home with my dog Cap because I love him so much. And so as I'm driving home, I've got my phone. I'm emailing to myself with a, what do you call it? A voice recognition, just speaking. And I'm dictating my story. I'm writing it verbally. And I can do that because I write like I talk.
Yeah.
And I just, and so go back and anybody listen, go back and look at that story. Anybody, tell me if you can see a difference. That is, I wrote that story by talking it. So anyway, that is my style.
Yeah. Hey, you are obviously passionate about what you do, and as a columnist, you can do that and get really engaged with the subject matter. I'm not going to ask you your favorite story, but I've got to believe that one of them had to be Tyler Trent, the Purdue super fan who got national attention, and what a story that was. Talk about that experience, because you became very close to Tyler and his family in that process.
Yeah, sports, as I say, is an excuse to write about people. And I wrote about him once back when he had cancer, but was beating it. And so I wrote about him once, and then maybe a second time. But I stayed in touch with him because he's a great kid. And then when cancer came back, it was no longer about journalism. It was just, he's a sweet kid, and he wants to be a sports writer, and he likes me, and I like him. And so I'm going to go see him. And I've got a lot of feelings about Tyler, about everything about this. I could go on forever, but I just would like to say this specifically, is that people used Tyler at the end. And I mean, journalists used him. Go back or just people, everybody, this happened. Sports writers, mainly radio and TV people would go visit Tyler, take a selfie. Hey, everybody, look at me. I'm with Tyler. And then post it. It was one guy in town who doesn't have a radio show anymore because doesn't deserve to, literally did a show from Tyler Trent's deathbed. Tyler was dying. This guy did a show from his bed. And people out there will look at that and go, oh, look how sweet that is. No, it's not sweet. No, it's opportunistic. You're holding up Tyler as a human shield. Hey, people like me. Look what I'm doing. I didn't like that. Now, Tyler loved it. Look, Tyler loved it. I don't criticize. He liked the attention. He liked being involved. He loved it. But I question the motives of a lot of people. So I'm saying all that to say that when Tyler died, I found out, and that night, obviously, and wrote a story because I knew I had to. My bosses had asked me, will you write his obituary when it happens? They actually asked me, will you write it? In the journalism business, you write obituaries from a lot of people before they die.
Yeah,
you
right.
do that.
Yep.
Yeah. So when someone, especially when you know something's coming, like I guarantee you, every newspaper in the country has a Joe Biden obituary, has a Donald Trump obituary. It's just what you do. That bosses asked me, Tyler was in his last days, and I knew that. They asked me if I wanted to write my obituary, his obituary, and I said I can't do it. I can't go there until it happens. I don't know how it's going to feel. So it happened, and I went there and I wrote that. And I've had so many opportunities to write about Tyler since then. And I did it once, 1 year anniversary. I wrote about, here's the cancer fighting that he tried to do and is doing even now. He donated some stem cells or whatever he donated.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And here's the progress they've made. Tyler Trent, we might solve cancer someday. I wrote this. We might cure cancer someday, and Tyler Trent might be the one to do it. And would you say you're surprised by that? No. So I have written one update story on Tyler, but I've been asked to write 10 more by different people for legitimate reasons, and I can't do it. I won't do it. He wasn't a story to me over time. He was not. And his family actually asked me to write his book, and I couldn't. I can't do it. I couldn't do it. And so anyway, and I know you use the word favorite to not like I just loved writing. You use favorite as a impactful, memorable story.
Right.
And certainly there will never be another Tyler Trent. This world will never see someone like him again, which means I'll never write about somebody like that again. But that story, and it's not woe is me. I mean, that family lost their kid, but that story took a chunk out of me that I haven't gotten back yet.
Yeah. Much more with IndyStar columnist Gregg Doyel coming up. We'll talk about growing up, the younger days with Gregg Doyel, and also maybe play some name association when the Business and Beyond podcast returns. Stay with us.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week, IndyStar columnist Gregg Doyel. And Gregg, growing up, you moved around a lot, right? You grew up in Oklahoma and Mississippi, high school in Macon, Georgia. You were actually born in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, my dad was in the military, so I followed him a little bit. I'm not a pure military brat, but I was born in Hawaii because he was in Vietnam. So anyway, my dad's moved around quite a bit, taking different jobs, different careers, and I followed him. And my parents got divorced, and so that caused a split, and I went with Dad. So yeah, Indiana is, I believe, my 11th state. I could go back and figure it out, but it's something like my 11th state. And I lived in Ohio before I came here for CBSSports.com for 10 years. That's the longest I've ever lived anywhere, 10 years. I'm getting close to my completed ninth year here. When all said and done, Indiana is going to be where I have lived the longest. I'm going to die here,
Yeah.
So this is my home.
You mentioned your dad, and I know, everybody's got role models, role model heroes. For you, it's your dad, I think, right?
Yeah, my dad. People talk about poverty, and there are millions of people have overcome poverty. I've never heard of anybody more impoverished than my dad. Now,
really?
And I know there have been.
Yeah.
And people that literally live on a sidewalk. Okay, that is more impoverished than my dad. That's a good point that I just made to undercut myself. But my dad was homeless for a time and lived in a chicken coop with his mom, and because their house burned down, they spent a Christmas in a chicken coop. Anyway, my dad was 10 kids, 2-bedroom home, no electricity, no water, back in Oklahoma. I mean, dirt poor. Wow. He's the youngest of 10. He was the first person in his family to go to college first, not to graduate, but just to go. Yeah. So he went to college, graduated, went to law school, graduated, got his master's, obviously law school, got his doctorate, whatever that is in law, was offered jobs to become the dean of law schools at a few places, didn't take them.
Wow. Became
a lawyer, became a judge, won election, become a judge. So when I write about people who've overcome whatever they've overcome to become what they have become, I've got an example of my dad just overcoming what he did. And I'm also very aware that it takes a village to raise someone like that. It takes a lot of people. You don't just do it by yourself. My dad had my mom. He had his older brother and sisters. He had his mom, had an advisor at high school. So we don't do it alone, but it takes some sort of special. Like, I didn't have to do that. I'll never know. And I think I know the answer. The answer is no. Could I have done what my dad did? Probably not. I'm aware that I was born into a very, to use a word, privileged situation that people don't get. And certainly people with my family line don't get. But I got it because of my dad. So yeah, he's my hero. He's my role model for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned you moved around a bit, and also in your professional lives too. You mentioned CBSSports.com. You wrote sports in Tampa, Tampa Tribune, Miami Herald, Charlotte Observer. You've written 2 books, right? One on Kentucky.
Yeah,
How'd that go? Really?
Yeah, they're bad. They're not good. They're
Why do you
the
say
writing. Well, the writing style is my style. So whether you think my writing style is good or bad, okay, it's that. But there's a higher standard for a book. There should be. And both of my books they fell into my lap. And I'm not going to say no. I'll say no now. I've said no to several books since. I love writing stories. In fact, we're talking right now on my Dell. On my laptop, I have an empty file that's my story file. I open it and rename it, whatever I'm writing about. Colts play Eagles, I save it. But that empty shell has my name by Gregg Doyel, IndyStar. And at the very top in italics, it says, I wonder what I'll write. I read that before every story I write because I love it. And people ask me and wonder, why do you write so long? Because I like it. Because I'm having a good time, dummy. I love what I do. A lot of people write just like they jog. They just want to be done. Once you start, you can't wait till you're finished. You love having run. You love having written, but you don't want to do the actual. I love writing. I love it. I didn't love writing a book in part because I was already doing full-time writing on the side. So it was like in my spare time, let's go write. It didn't feel real. It felt cold, but also my books are glorified magazine articles. One of them was about a look at Kentucky's best players ever. What are they doing now? So it's 25 or 30 players I found, or some of them are dead, and just wrote 25 or 30 mini features. So that's not a book. I mean, it is. It's in a book, but it's not a book. And then my story about Duke basketball, Coach K. Krzyzewski, this happened 25 years ago. He was coming out with his own book, a biography, literally the next year. So when I started doing this unauthorized bio, Coach K put the word out to everybody. Please don't talk to Gregg Doyel because I'm doing my book.
Really?
And what happened was no one knew I was doing that book. I mean, Coach K did eventually. I stupidly asked him, hey, can I interview you for my book? Once he got that letter in the mail or however he got it, my access dried up. I remember it. I went from getting people on the phone, they're calling me back. Jay Billis, people like that were calling me back, and I was talking to them. And then one day it dried up. Like no one called back. And I saw Jay Billis later, I think it was Billis, a year or two later, and told him that. And I said, I can't figure out what happened. And he goes, what happened was Coach K sent a letter out to people saying, Coach K didn't say, don't talk to me. He didn't say that. He said something like, Gregg's doing an unauthorized bio. Keep that in mind. And I'm doing an authorized bio next year. Keep that in mind if he contacts you. So anyway, that book was written, a book about Duke and Coach K was written purely on clips from the Charlotte Observer going back 30 years. That's not a book. Yeah. So anyway, someday I hope to write fiction. I started a fiction book about 20 years ago, and I got 2 chapters in and realized I was rewriting the book Fight Club. I was just rewriting it. It was about a sports writer, of course it was, who falls asleep, and while he's asleep, he goes off and does all these crazy things. And I got 2 chapters in before I realized my favorite book is Fight Club. I'm rewriting it. So I stopped writing that one. Yeah. I'm at book failure is my point. Book failure.
But you're gonna resurrect one day, get back into fiction writing, you think?
I hope. I'm going to retire at some point, and I'm a terrible retire person. I will be terrible. I don't play golf. I don't like to garden. I do things to keep busy, but I'll always have a dog, and I like to go to the gym, but that's not enough. And as I told you before, I love to write. I love the act of writing. And once I'm not doing it for a job, I'm going to want to do it. And it all come down to, do I have an idea? I don't know. One thing I love about sports and the people's stories I write about is I don't need an idea. Everybody's interesting their own story. Just tell me what you know about you, and I'll write that. I'm hooked. But if I got to just come up in my own head with some idea, I haven't done it yet. I haven't really tried yet, but I haven't been able to do it yet easily. We'll see if I can do it at all.
Yeah. You mentioned Coach K. You have interviewed and been around, obviously, a lot of high-profile athletes and others. Want to do a little name association with you now, Gregg, if we could. And just tell me your first thoughts when you hear the name Jim Irsay.
Passionate, loving, flawed, human. And I would describe myself the same way, by the way. I'd use those 4 words too. Flawed.
Yeah.
Don't read flawed. Don't flawed.
Yeah.
You know what? Screw flawed. Flawed's the wrong word. Human. He's imperfect. He's human. I love Jim Irsay.
Andrew Luck.
Nerdy, humble, beautiful human being. One of my favorite all-time athletes because he's so humble. I speak to, sorry, I'm screwing up your word association.
No,
here.
you're good. You're good. That's good.
Okay, I speak to high schools and colleges sometimes, not a lot, but I do. When I do, especially the younger kids, middle school, whatever, I tell them the most winning combination you can have is to be really good at something. Because I tell them, everybody in this classroom, there are people that are, there's the most handsome kid in this classroom, there's the best writer, there's the best athlete, there's the best whatever. And you know who you are. And guess what? The rest of the class, they know who you are too. You can screw that up by being arrogant about it. People want a reason not to like the best of us. They just do. And I'm not including me in the us. I'm just saying the best of the world. People want a reason to dislike them. Don't give it to them. The best thing you can do, the most charming thing you can do is be excellent at whatever you're excellent at and not let anybody know you know it. And that was Andrew Luck. And the truth is, I'm not sure even he knew it. Number 1 overall draft pick and all this, and I'm still not sure he knew how good he was. I love that about him.
Peyton Manning.
Don't know him at all, but brilliant, charming. Actually, I met him one time. You want my Peyton Manning story?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Star sent me to Denver when the Colts were going to play the Broncos. Might have been 14 or 15. And they, go there a couple days early, right about Peyton Manning, and they're going to play Peyton. And so I went there, and I'm in the locker room, and Peyton's over at his locker getting dressed or whatever. And I don't know the rules in Denver. I just stupidly think I can go talk to him. So once he kind of turns around, this is after a practice, I walk up to him, and a PR guy has been standing there for the sole purpose of guarding Peyton and to not let that happen. And this guy cuts me off. And Peyton, and this is greatness too.
Yeah.
Peyton turns to the guy or says, it's okay. It's okay. And then he looks at me, he goes, come on, Greg, come over here. And I'm not telling you that story to say Peyton Manning knows my name. That's not the point. He didn't know who I was. I guarantee you what happened was someone told him the IndyStar's in town. And Peyton said, well, what's the guy's name? What does he look like? So that he could make me feel that special. Again, the story is not Peyton Manning knew my name. I promise you 24 hours earlier, he had no idea. But in that moment, he did, and he gave it to me. He let me know. That's a lot of athletes nowadays. A lot of coaches do this. You go to press conferences, you'll see coaches will throw out names of the people they like.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I tell you what. And then the people they don't like, well, I'll tell you what, they don't give you your name. They use it almost as a bludgeon for the people they don't like and as a rose petal for the people they do. So for Peyton to do that with no one watching, he's not sending a message to anybody, just me saying, you're welcome here. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. Tamika Catchings.
Hero. She has used her disability, her hearing issues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if disability is the right word. Forgive me if it's the wrong word, but she's used her hearing issues to raise awareness and money and to help. And, she was one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And she now has her Catch the Stars Foundation, and she's trying to help the world get better. So she didn't decide, look at the great run I had, I'm done. No. She's using the great run she had to try and make the world a better place.
Bob Knight.
Complicated, complex. That's the obituary I have written. Forgive me for saying that, but I told you earlier, in case this is spliced out, that newspapers have obituaries written for a lot of people. And I've never written an obituary in advance, ever. I told you about Tyler Trent. I wouldn't do it. I wasn't going to do it with Bobby Knight either. They asked me a while ago, will you do Bobby Knight? And by the time this airs in a week or two, it might have already happened. I was told not long ago, we've all been told, there's rumors everywhere. So I'm not breaking news. I'm just telling you what I was told by someone that I think would know that it's happening any day.
Yeah.
Now, it's been happening, quote, any day for about 2 months now. So he's just hanging on because that's Bob Knight. He is stubborn and he'll go when he feels like it. I've written his obituary because I was told any day, and the emotion hit me. Like we're about to have a world without Bob Knight. And I didn't fake it. I wrote a story about, oh my gosh, I wrote it in advance because that's what you do. And the story I wrote underscores, I'm telling you all that just to say, very complicated, very complex. And I grappled with, as we all will, his legacy. What is Bob Knight? Who was he? And if you try to say he's either or, you're wrong. Well, he's the greatest coach ever, and that's what he is. Yeah, that's not all of it. Well, he was a son of a gun who did all these awful things and mean and got in, fights with whoever. And that's what he is. Well, he did those things, but he's more. He's very, very complicated. So that's what he is.
Yeah. Okay. Two more. Matt Painter.
Love him. Would like Matt Painter to be my neighbor someday. It won't happen because I can't afford wherever he lives. I can't afford that. But he is, I told you earlier about luck. Painter is the most normal. He is the most normal high major coach in any sport. High major is what we say for basketball.
Yep.
But the NBA that's high major in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He's the most normal, humble. If he weren't 6'6", you'd never. If he was just my size, walking around, you'd never know. A lot of coaches, they walk around, it's the way they carry themselves, it's the clothes they wear, it's the people they have around them, it's the things they say.
Yeah.
Matt Painter, you don't know. Even if you're talking to him after a game, he's on a podium talking about Purdue basketball team. You still have to check yourself and say, is this guy really the head coach of Purdue?
Yeah.
Because he's so freaking normal. I love that.
Yeah. Final one, Mike Woodson.
Cool. He's the jazz man. He is cool. And he's humble too. He's a recurring theme here is humility. Woodson's humble. I mean, he's Mike Woodson. He scored 2,000 points, played in the NBA. He's coached in the NBA. He's coaching here. He is so humble and he's cool. Like when he talks, I just want to, if I could play a saxophone, that would be like, I'd be playing it in the background as he talks. Cause he sounds like he's in a smoky room with a saxophone playing. He's crooning whatever he's crooning. I like him a whole lot. I don't know him that well, but I like him a whole lot.
Good stuff. What's next for Gregg Doyel? Obviously, you're writing your column, all the things you do there. But anything you want to accomplish here in the next 5 or 10 years?
Oh wow! I thought next. Well, what's next? Really quickly, and hopefully it's should run before this post. Is I'm writing about the IHSAA again, the IHSAA,
yes,
and how I don't think they like kids. They work in a job where their job is to manage sports in our state. And they have rulings. Their rulings say, we don't like you, kids. We don't like you. We like schools. We like coaches. We like principals. We like our salaries. Kids, we don't like you. So I've got a story. And I've written a bunch of these stories where the facts in the stories are unbelievable. Like you really can't believe them, but they're true. I've got one that you're not going to believe. I'm just telling you, you're not going to believe it, but it is true. So what's going next? I've got a bucket list. And one of them is I want a Boston Terrier. I do. I want a dachshund someday. Professionally, I have a bucket list, and I shouldn't say this, but what's next for me is I want a Sagamore the Wabash. And I don't know if you're supposed to say that or not. And I don't say that. What I have not said, and I want to be in the Indiana Journalism Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say those two things, what you've not heard me say is I belong in the Hall of Fame. I have heard me say that. I want to. I'm not done. I'm 50, whatever I am, young, early 50s. Okay, fine. I'm 53. I'm not done yet. By the time I'm done, I hope somebody somewhere says, well done, good and faithful servant. And here's your Sagamore because you were a Hoosier. I get emotional even thinking about that. And I hope someday somebody very important says, well done, sports writer. You cared about our state. You lifted us up, and you're going to be in the Indiana Journalism Hall of Fame. So I'm about to get emotional. I haven't earned it. But you asked me what's next for me. I want those. And I want a dachshund.
And a dachshund. A great way to wrap up what has been a great podcast. Gregg Doyel has been a real treat to have a conversation. Thanks so much for joining us, and looking forward to your next and many future columns as well. Thanks again.
Gary, thanks. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you for joining us on the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. It's a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download every episode and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.